Daily Solutions gets your float brain rocking. Daily Solutions featuring two guys talking about float tanks every day. To thank them, just send money. Make it out to float on 4530 Hawthorne 97215. Sent to Portland, Oregon. All right. Welcome.
Hey, everybody. This is Ashkahn.
Graham is my name. And today's question is, where do I draw the line between perfect sanitation? It's a mouthful right there. So, I mean, why even bother reading the rest of the question?
Let's hear them out.
Where do I draw the line between perfect sanitation and how much labor it takes?
People are going to stop sending us questions if we just ruthlessly make fun of them every time.
I'm sorry. I worry I'm burning out my employees.
Where do I draw the line between perfect sanitation?
Did the silly voice get you the first time? Where do I draw the line between perfect sanitation and how much labor it takes?
Okay.
I worry I'm burning out my employees.
Okay.
Well, first of all, perfect sanitation is something you're never going to reach. So
yeah.
I mean, you just can't.
It's
a gray area.
That's I think part of what makes this so difficult, right?
Yeah,
is that sanitation is kind of this whole like risk analysis sort of thing, and because there's no perfect, it makes it a harder question to figure out where you draw the line, right? If there was a perfect, then there'd be something so much more achievable that you could be like, well, if we just know what would actually be perfect sanitation, we should do it. But
here we just have like, it's not even like a very good. It's really just better than whatever is less than that, or like worse than going more all out. There's just, it really is just a giant, kind of gray area with very indeterminate bounds in a lot of cases. And it's true, like if you're trying to be as diligent as you possibly can about everything, I mean, that's a lot. It's just a lot to accomplish in the transitions when you're trying to clean out rooms, it's a lot. So what do we mean?
You will burn people. I mean, it is huge. It's a huge amount of work that you can just always scrub harder, or do something longer, or do something more intensely, or like replace something or clean something more often. Like there's just always a way to go more extreme.
Yeah, I mean, if you have, little wooden, I mean, this is just one kind of example of what we're talking about, but if you have wooden slats that people are stepping onto in the float tank room, are you spraying them down with some kind of disinfectant between everyone, or are you actually taking the slats fully out so that you can, like, soak them in something, or do this more extreme kind of cleaning and put in a whole new set of slats in between people, right? It's like at some point you're kind of asking yourselves these various questions about the level that you're worried about things.
Yeah, so like what demands you make of your shop staff is, I mean, it's a real question, and it really just has a lot to do with the pragmatics of reality. Man, yeah.
It's hard. So that said, let's just shoot forward with some opinions and some things to keep in mind, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, one thing that comes to my mind right off the bat is so much of this stuff has to do with room construction initially, and with the things that you're actually putting in your room, right?
Sure.
Even just having something like a floor mat that you're stepping out of the tank onto immediately has this other question of how are you sanitizing that floor mat that they're stepping onto, as opposed to if they're going right on the floor, you always know you need to kind of disinfect the floor with something and spray it down. How long you're letting things sit there. What else would you say is like some of the big questions that people are running into when they're talking about, burning out their staff versus doing the right thing for sanitation? I guess even just checking levels of something between every single person, right? I mean, you could check
wiping
hydrogen
stuff down.
Yeah.
I mean, there's the whole room can be wiped down, and like it's really very difficult between every floater to go in and wipe down the entire walls and the whole walls of the outside of the float tank and the walls of the inside of the float tank. And
walls of the inside of the float tank is a great example, actually, because I think not a lot of centers go as far as actually, spraying a hard surface disinfectant on the walls of the float tank, letting it sit for the appropriate amount of time between every customer. I mean, you can't time-wise, right?
Yeah.
Unless you just have an hour or something between every customer.
And, part of the problem is we don't know exactly what the even like kind of comfortable standards for stuff like this would be. It's not like there is a, hey, if you do this less frequently than this, like people are really likely to get sick sort of information out there for how often you disinfect the walls. So I don't know. Some of it's hard. And I think, I kind of feel like approaching sanitation has a lot to do with a couple things with your staff. One is I think if you have, assuming you have people who care and you've hired good people in the first place,
Yeah.
so I'm just going to go forward under that assumption. Assuming that you have people who care, like they're, I think, also going to care about keeping the place clean. Like they want to provide clean sanitary floats. They don't want to get people sick. They want people to have good experiences, right? And the way that they do that is I think it's hard once you've been running a float center for a while to realize that the knowledge that's in your head is not in other people's heads.
Yeah, it's
and you've
very
been
true.
spending a couple years learning about sanitation and how things work and why you're doing certain things. And that gives you better judgment than the people that are brand new or you hired or who haven't been spending the time looking into that. And it might be that people aren't doing a good job, not out of ill intention, but just out of not knowing, hey, like this is a common way diseases can be transferred. So to me, it's kind of like knowledge. Like we spend a lot of time trying to pass on information. If people are doing some sort of cleaning activity in our float center, we try to explain why. Like, why are we cleaning like this? Why do we do it in this way?
Are you trying to say that educating people will lead to them having more buy-in in the process? Is that?
Yeah, I mean, not just buy-in, but like I feel like judgment is a part of it.
Yeah.
Right? Like there's so many times I feel like something comes up and someone on the staff has to make a decision about the best way to clean it, and you're just not there to like be like, oh, I think you should do this or I think you should do that. Or especially if you get a little bit less involved in the day-to-day of your float center. If you step away from being the person who's there cleaning every day or even on your deep cleans, like the habits of people of your shop staff while they're cleaning will slowly start to evolve. Someone will do something someday and it's like a little bit easier and they'll be like, oh man, we should do it this way. That's easier. And that might be a good thing because they just found an easier way to do something, or it might be a bad thing because what they're doing is actually worse sanitation, but they don't know it because they don't have that full sense of understanding. So they're making a bad judgment call.
So an example might be, for example, two examples in one sentence there. I don't know what happened, but let's take shower sandals or offering some kind of slippers.
Yeah.
And at Float On, we trade them out between every single person. Doesn't matter if they're in the place where we leave them. Doesn't matter if they look bone dry. If for anyone observing it, it would just look like no one used those sandals. Doesn't matter. Take them into the back room, spray them off, disinfect them, put another set of totally clean sandals in there. And that's because people can do weird things, right? Like people will take sandals and wear them and then dry them off with their towel and put them back in the original position. And who knows why? They're floaty or, something like they're just really diligent and hate leaving a mess or something. But it could be that one of your staff members looks at that and says, oh, well, why don't we just do a wetness test on these sandals, make sure they're in the same spot we left them. And if they are, then we don't trade them out. And that'll save a little bit of time on transition, right? And that's one of those things like Ashkahn was talking about where as owners and as someone who has seen people do really, like people will wear robes and retie them and try to like tie the same knot that we use. So we have a special float on knot that people can't replicate. But it's because, there are reasons for switching it out.
Yeah.
And so you can't just rely totally on people's judgment.
One that I see really commonly is there's just such a temptation to use the customer's towels for things. You go into a room and clean, there's always a towel sitting there. You're like, hey, maybe I should just use this dirty towel to like wipe this last remaining part up. Or maybe we should use this dirty towel to like put on our floor because, the floor is dirty too. Like that to me is a logical jump. I see a lot of like staff.
That's a good one.
They're like, oh, well, like, what am I going to go grab a whole nother towel? There's this towel over here. But like, we got to worry about skin diseases and stuff like that. And like, when you look into that stuff and you understand that, when you see a towel service and they come out with like medical bags to like take your towels away and they're wearing gloves and stuff like that, you're like, maybe towels are a place that disease can spread from person to person. Maybe I shouldn't be using that to clean stuff up. But there's a convenience to it that I think becomes really tempting to people. And so I think knowledge helps, right? It gives people the tools to make better judgment calls than that. And I think just the more you build up good sanitation practices in general, the more you're building a kind of like good culture of sanitation. If you're sitting there emphasizing all these fundamentals of sanitation and the fact that, disinfection sprays need to sit for a certain amount of times and things that make contact with people's bodies are ways that like diseases can be spread. And, if you're going over those basic building blocks with people and your staff knows that sanitation is important, then it creates this kind of whole environment where people are always thinking about it because it's an important part of running the job and they have the tools to make those decisions to figure out what to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and that's true for everything too. Education in general is always such a powerful tool. Like for getting people on your side, it is amazing how much just making sure they have knowledge and that you're not just dictating down from this place on high exactly what people shall do and what they shall not do, but they understand the reasons. And, maybe they'd even be more diligent in cleaning if they have that explanation. Kind of similar terms, too. And it's interesting, it's steering this direction as far as sanitation, but I think a lot of it is more, you were asking, or the questioner was asking about making sure their staff isn't burnt out. Right. And for me, a lot of that is in expectations, too. I mean, we hire people and we let them know a lot of their job is going to be cleaning. It's not like we're saying, oh, you'll just have this cushy desk job and then all this cleaning is kind of sprung on them in between. It's like, no, you have to set the expectation from the beginning that that's a huge part of what they're doing. So if you already have a staff, that boat might have sailed a little bit, but you can still do it even. You can still have an all-staff meeting and say, hey, we're going to be changing some things up. From now on, we're going to be really diligent about A, B, C, and D related to sanitation in the rooms. And I need, everyone to be on board. And if this isn't the job you thought you signed up for, let's have a talk in private or something. You can reset standards even after the fact. But to me, that's such a huge part, too, of just avoiding the burnout is making sure people know what they're getting it into. And there's just this mental ease to going along with something when you know it's coming that is not there if you have been doing something a certain way for a long time and then suddenly have to switch. And
I feel like the other part of it in terms of helping prevent burnout is like if you can explain why something needs to be cleaned and the end result and then make the process open for debate. Like we do that a lot. I'm like, well, this is the issue, is that this is what we're trying to deal with. And this is what we need to get to. And here's my suggestion is like, we use this spray and we use these hand towels and someone goes in and like does it like this. But like, if you can think of a better way to accomplish this goal, let's do it. Or, we're really, really like extremely easygoing on spending money to make the cleaning easier for our staff. Yeah. Like it's the point where like if you can find a tool that will make any part of this cleaning process easier for you, like we will buy it. We will spend huge amounts of money because like we're saving whatever, like your physical labor, repetitive work for you, your mental health,
making it so that it's easier to get the room clean, which means customers will have a better experience. All of it just gets better with better cleaning supplies.
And and our employees do sometimes have better suggestions. They're like, hey, what if we did it like this? And you're like, yeah, that's actually an easier way of accomplishing the same goal. And if they don't, like if they can't come up with a better way of doing something, they often are like, okay, I guess that sounds like the way we have to do it. Like there's just a much more easy sort of way to get everybody on board, because it's not like it's being forced on you. Like everyone understands and appreciates the goal, and like that's the best anybody could come up with as a way of accomplishing it.
I remember years ago I was visiting one of the Float House locations and I was chatting with one of their managers. And he was showing me, he's like, yeah, I'm just all about developing different ways to clean. And he pulled out a drill and he had a rag that he was attaching to it. He's like, tonight I'm seeing how drill rag does. Like maybe you can just kind of run this over the float tank, and clean it up. But right, I mean, it actually, people can get excited about it.
We've looked into mop shoes, like we have all sorts of crazy, like weird stuff we've done in our place.
So they can actually have fun with it, right? It seems silly that people would get really excited about ways to clean a room, but it's amazing. You leave it up to them and they can come up with ideas like rag drill,
We used to clean with a super soaker. That was part of our nightly cleaning process.
It was super fun too.
So I kind of feel like that's only part of the question. I know we've been talking for a long time now, but I feel like we should at least address the other part, which is like, I feel like what we've discussed so far is how do you do the same level of cleaning, but get your staff to be less burdened by it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Whereas I feel like the other part of this question is like, at what point do you decide that's just too much? That's just too intense of a cleaning protocol. It's way too much work.
How do you decide how many times a week to clean the inside of your walls?
Yeah, exactly.
Is it nightly? Is it twice a week? Is it?
Yeah, and that is it's a really difficult question. I mean, and it's something that I think we are slowly piecing together as an industry. Like, if you don't know the answers to every single frequency or in-depthness of all your cleaning protocol, don't feel like that is something you're going to be able to figure out in like a week of diligent research. Like, it's something as an industry we're like kind of step by step getting closer to.
And we have another episode where we have kind of our list of cleaning procedures that we go through for cleaning a room and what we consider like a room turnover from the float-on perspective to be. So for like total details, definitely look in our show notes and you can go back and listen to that one just so we don't have to go through everything again. But yeah, how do you make the decision of, let's just use that as an example, like where there is this gray area of how often do you clean down the inside of the walls? You know?
I mean, it's hard. There's I think just kind of general consensus amongst the industry, like figuring out how often people are doing it. There's any sort of visual or like smell or anything like that. Like
any contraindications.
If you can notice anything, that probably means you're doing it like infrequently. Like you should be doing it more frequently so that it doesn't get to the point where you're actually specifically like scrubbing something off or something like that. So just actually pay attention. If something's looking bad, like you should be cleaning it more frequently than you are. And
pay special attention to the areas that people are likely to come in contact with.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's an area not to skimp as far as just transition cleaning is someone likely to touch a handle on a door? Great. Disinfect the handle. Maybe you don't need to disinfect the entire door. Right? Things like that where it's just the obvious spots, make sure that you're always hitting those. And if you have time, you can go back and hit, some of the areas where clients are less likely to interact with, for example. But when you do have to make decisions, that's the kind of go logically through the places that are highest risk in that sense, right?
And I think the other thing that we do is, we have these multiple frequencies of cleaning, and if something is if we want to do it, but it's like way too intense to do in between every floater, like we just push it to that level of frequency that makes it actually feasible. So if we're like, hey, we should really be cleaning this in this way, but that takes 30 minutes.
Yep.
Maybe that's something we do every night. Maybe it's something we do once a week, and that's part of cleaning. Like we watched a talk at some conference about biofilms and biofilm buildup, and the person gave a presentation and made an analogy of like cleaning your teeth. And it's like, hey, there is a difference between brushing your teeth every day and the benefit you get from going to the dentist every 6 months and getting that much deeper like teeth cleaning, and like you can do that with cleaning your facilities as well. Like doing that much more intense cleaning in a less frequent basis gets you deeper and is enough to kind of keep things balanced. So
right?
keep
And
that
at some
in mind
point
too.
you could be having a dental cleaning every week and brushing your teeth 12 times a day, and like it's also that one of those areas where you need to draw a line. Just with dentistry, we have decades of research that says, maybe brushing your teeth 12 times a day is overkill. And with float, we're kind of getting around to that a little more.
So think about where it makes sense in the scope of your operations. Like maybe this is, if it's too much to handle in a transition, maybe it's something you can do once a night. And that's at least creating that kind of nice buffer for you and making sure it gets done at some point.
And I guess if you're writing this because you have specific things in mind or there are specific procedures that you're curious about and you're wondering whether you're doing them too often or not often enough, definitely write that into us too, and we can get a little more specific with it. Sometimes I feel like our answers are a little broad just because the terms we're talking about are a little more general.
I know. There's a lot of like case by case basis with this that is easier to answer.
Write in anytime. Also, I guess one or two last things. If your health department is overseeing you, then this is also a conversation that you can have partly with them.
Yeah.
Because they'll want some say on how the rooms separate from the water or anything like that are being handled between clients.
Or at least get people to get advice from.
Yeah.
I very rarely see regulations go in depth as like, here's how you should be cleaning your room, other than like clean rooms shall be maintained or something like that. But like that's a good way to build rapport with your health department too. Like, can you give me some advice on my room cleaning procedures?
And that's the most like a public pool or a spa or something that you're going to get in a float tank center too, is that it's a wet environment. You're talking about a lot of water that's not salt water, a lot of humidity coming up from the shower. Like this is all stuff that the health department is actually used to dealing with and can probably give you some good guidelines they use in other places to stop mold from growing and stop things from being a health hazard.
Yeah.
Cool. I think that's all I had.
Yeah. And you said it at the very beginning of this episode, but construction is a big way of making a lot of this stuff easier for you. So if you haven't started a float center yet, this is great stuff to think about.
Floor drains, right?
Floor drains, what materials you're using, how many
everywhere,
corners there are, how many seams there are, like all this stuff. The decisions you make of how you build your float room is almost like the biggest impact on how easy or hard it will be to keep it clean going forward. So yeah, it's unfortunate to hear for people who already have float centers, but that's the biggest way to save yourself.
And they already know, this is it's old knowledge for them.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, that was a good question. Yeah. And if you have your own, or again, if you want to get more specific with building on sanitation stuff, definitely head over
Talk to us.
Yeah, just give us a ring, shoot us a text.
Or go to floortanksolutions.com/podcast.
Yep. Actually, that's a better. I check that more often than I check my phone. So, yeah. Talk to you guys tomorrow.
Right.